Okay. All right. So I'm going to start. Hi, everybody. My name is Pam Snell. I'm one of the owners of Axmod IT, and we are so happy to be hosting Deborah Parent today and Caitlin, and Deb's going to talk about Kate. But I want to give you a little bit of information about Deborah Parent. She has 34 years of HR management experience. In addition to helping dental practices and corporate clients with recruitment, oh my goodness, and retention, Deb will be teaching the Capstone Senior Strategic Management course at UMass Dartmouth, is a former adjunct business professor at Bristol Community College and supervisory and leadership skills grant trainer for Bristol Community College. Deb has an MBA, 3 national HR certifications, including a recently obtained SHRM Talent Acquisition Certification, and is a certified coach. Thank you, Deb, for coming, and take it away.
Thank you so much for having us. And my sidekick is Caitlin. She has 22 years in the dental industry. She has done several positions and held several positions at several different dental offices in the Mass Rhode Island area, from dental assisting to dental hygienist, and even training other hygienists. She is a phenomenal dental recruiter. She has an incredible fill rate and a pretty healthy database of candidates of which she draws from for our clients who also love her. So I will start the presentation, and Kate will bring it to an end for us. Please do take copious notes. There are a lot of gems and golden nuggets in this presentation for you to use and employ in your practice of recruiting.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Kate. So we really need to kind of think differently about recruiting today because, right, it's a candidate's market. Today's workforce expectations are so different than even 5 years ago, pre-COVID. And we have to respond to that. And a lot of practices have not changed their recruiting approaches at all, despite that it is a candidate's market and the workforce expects so much more from employers today. And you've got to adjust your not only your hiring strategies, but your operating strategies. So that may mean we have to change our work hours. We have to change who does what task in the office. We have to do things differently. We have to maybe have the job done somewhere else or by someone else. So we'll get into that, but it's really broad thinking and thinking out of the box. It's got to be thought about differently than it has been. And obviously, the digital transformation of business also affects even our practices. So as a customer, we want to just pick up our phone and order something, and it's delivered by 5 p.m. And it's so super simple. We want that ease of ordering something as a customer. Well, we want that same ease using technology as an employee too. If you hire me and I have to work with a clunky system in the dental practice to get something done, I'm not going to want to work there anymore. I want to work where there's the latest and the greatest technology, and it's super easy and super simple. So that kind of impacts where we are today as well. Not many folks know, and this is what we teach actually at UMass Dartmouth for our HR management bachelor's degree program. What is, first of all, talent acquisition is recruiting. And there are 4 elements to recruiting. Unfortunately, most businesses just do one of them, which means if you don't do the other 3, you're not prepared to do the one well. We aren't going to cover onboarding today out of these 4. That's a whole separate presentation, which we intend to provide in the future. We'll cover 1 through 3. But like I said, a lot of folks start at hiring, but you don't start at hiring. There's 2 steps before hiring that are critical to hiring well and being able to hire. And before you even start this journey, you need to know 2 things, 2 new terms for you. One is employment branding and one is employee value proposition. So I'm going to explain both of those for you because you really need to have a good understanding of those terms. Employee value proposition is simply, what do employees get out of the deal working for you? And it's made up of 5 different characteristics. This is what I get out of working for a company. I've worked for many companies, from healthcare to manufacturing, and I got all of these things from the company, some more than others, depending on the company, but I felt a company culture. There was a company culture where I worked. Yes, I had comp and benefits. Yes, there was a work environment, a physical work environment, and almost an emotional, a psychological work environment. What does it feel like to work there? And then career development. There was either some career development at the companies I worked for, some not so much. And relationships. That's what I got out of the deal. I got all of this out of the deal. So you have to look at your own practice and think about, do I have all 5 of these covered well? Because candidates and employees want all 5. They don't just want number 2 or number 5. They need all of them. So think about your employee value proposition. And when you think about that, and let me just sort of stop here and talk about relationships, number 5, and why do we care about that and doing that well in the workforce is there's been many research studies that show that employees who have positive work relations expend more effort on the job. Well, as a manager, I want that, right? Quality of managers, peer relations, and internal communications directly impact how much discretionary effort they're going to give forth on my job. I'm interested in that as a manager. So that's why these large companies, granted they have big budgets, but that's why they participate in training and development to train people on how to work well together in positive relationships and team building. So think about potentially doing some of that for your practice, because there is a benefit to that in the end. So when we think of this employee value proposition, what do you offer the employees? You have to first identify whether you lead, match, or lag the market. And this is on 1 through 5. On comp and benefits, are you leading, are you matching, or are you lagging the market? Are you paying what the market rate or the going rate is, or are you behind the market? And if you're not sure, try to ask yourself these 2 questions. Number 1, are we able to attract currently quality candidates? And I put in quotes quality because you can easily attract candidates. Whether they're quality or not is the question. And that's why a lot of companies come to us and practices come to us to help them find the quality candidates. And are you able to retain your best employees with your existing employee value proposition? So answer these 2 questions for yourself to know, do I have a strong employee value proposition? And to do that, you need to kind of look at some data. You can come up with an opinion, but you want to back it up with data. And what kind of data am I talking about? You want to look at all of these things. A comp and benefit market analysis. A lot of practices do engage us to do a market analysis so that they know, are we leading, matching, or lagging the market for our compensation and benefits? You need to assess that before you start recruiting. Again, this is all pre-recruiting, pre-hiring. Employee satisfaction surveys. What do they tell you? What's your employee sentiment? What do employees feel about working at the company? Glassdoor reviews. What are they saying about your company? Turnover data. And your recruiter experience. What do your recruiters tell you? What are the reasons for your job offer declinations in the last year? If you had 5 people decline job offers, why did they decline? This is all information that you can use to determine what your employee value proposition is, whether you're leading, matching, or lagging, and whether you are able to fill your positions. So employer branding is the first element. of this recruiting framework. And just to, I'm going to show you what I mean by employer branding, but know that the statistics show that 93% of job seekers research an employer as soon as they see a job post. They want to find out, what is it about this company? Why should I consider working for this company? What are you known for in the labor market? So you got to know your employer brand. I once worked for a company and they had difficulty recruiting, and I actually interviewed for them for a week for free, just to get a sense of what their employer brand was. What are they known for? What does the labor market think about them? And after interviewing for a week, I had a clear picture. What I learned was we were known as the lowest paid employer in that industry in a 50-mile radius, which obviously is an issue if you're trying to generate candidates and attract candidates to your company. So we had to deal with that issue before we even began recruiting. And whether you have deliberately developed an employment brand or not, you have one already. So it's best that you deliberately develop it so that it comes out a positive employer branding. And just to show you what I mean by employer branding, because I think this might give you a better sense of what I mean. Let me just get out of this and see if we can jump to Molly. I'm going to play this video for you. I'm going to ask you some questions. So please write down what values, corporate practice, company values you get out of this very short, it's only 1.5 minutes video, because this is about the best employer branding that I've seen. But this tells you the story and the picture of what it's like to work at that company. I want to know what they value.
Molly, can you please take out the trash? Hey, Molly?
How many movement sequence going?
Great. Let me show you.
Please do.
I reprogrammed the robots to do the inspection. It's running much faster now.
It's amazing, Molly.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about that. What values did you see in that video? Pam, it's got to be you. Dad, you can give answers too.
That she had initiative, which is awesome.
Initiative. What else?
That company is looking for young, bright, educated engineers that build things. And it looks like a great place to work.
Exactly. What else did we see? Other value, company, corporate values.
Technology.
Yes, high tech. So if you want to work at a place that has high tech and is testing the latest and the greatest, yes. And so you have initiative. They value initiative. They value technology. Dad, they're going to attract bright, energetic engineers. What about diversity? Did we see diversity?
Yeah, I saw diversity.
Yep. What about recognition?
Yes.
Yeah.
We saw,
Yeah, I saw that gig, that the supervisor praising that employee.
exactly. And what about, you know, women in STEM, women in engineering, women in science, right? So just in 1 minute, and granted, this is GE, right, on a national commercial, but you can have such a video on your website. It is not a major production. So that's what an employer brand is. But I thought that would be illustrative for you. I'll leave you with two other, wait. Let me go back to the slideshow from current slide. I'll leave you with two other links here so that you can look up these two links because they're also very good. So where do you put this employer branding? How do you get it out there? You get it out there on the careers page, the job posts, blogs, videos, social media. But the best people to tell your story, your practice's story, are the employees themselves. So that's why a lot of these big companies like Google have hashtag Life at Google, and employees go out there and they post their experience on these you know, hashtags. And you can do the same as well. So employment branding or employer branding, it creates an image that makes people want to work for you. Maintaining that image so employees want to stay. So that's really the sort of the first step you want to think about for recruiting. It's well before you have a vacancy, right? You know, the wolf's at the door and you got a vacancy, you got to fill it right away. But the work has to be done long before that, so that when you need to recruit, you've got a following already. You've got interest. So some must-haves for employment branding, and we can't have everything, but you'll notice that on this little laundry list here, there isn't really pay and benefits. Technologically advanced. You want to sort of put forth that you are interested in employee well-being and work-life balance. I interviewed somebody yesterday, and she said she was impressed by our job post because it talked about work-life balance and not a grind away your day work environment. Leaders who prioritize people and their development, a financially healthy and growth-oriented practice. You got to let them know that we're not just, you know, just hanging on a shoestring here. We are definitely flourishing and growing as a practice. Seamless candidate and employee experience. There's a growth program, mobility program that you can advance. Business decisions that tie to mission and values, remote work and some flexibility. Kate's going to talk about that. An emotionally, physically positive work environment. And, you know, physical alone, you want to make sure that the spaces that your folks enjoy are positive. You're not having people have lunch in a closet. And I've seen that in small practices. And that's not wonderful for anybody. So it doesn't take a lot of money or time or effort to make the physical environment more positive. Planning is the second element. You can build, buy, or borrow. In most cases, we're getting calls to find staff. You know, buying and borrowing is, you know, using the Stint app or a contractor. You're just using an outsourced contracted individual or outsourcing some sort of function. You can outsource your insurance billing and so forth. You know, obviously you can't do dentistry out, you know, by having people actually there on site. Planning, you need to kind of consider before you even post the position, do I need the same skills as I had before? The job requirements, I might need to alter what I'm demanding for requirements and qualifications because the quantity of candidates out there is less than it used to be. So you kind of have to look at that whole job differently. Sometimes you can look at, do I need that person? Because just because we had that position filled in the past doesn't mean that we need to have it filled in the future. And again, you want to look at all kinds of options: part-time, full-time, seasonal, temporary, per diem, contract status, or using technology instead. Maybe there's a technological solution nowadays where you don't need to hire somebody. When you do planning, you have to first look at what are the losses in that position tell us. Why did the last 5 people leave that position? Because that should inform you when you design this job going forward. And that's what a lot of people don't do. They just keep repeating the same process. We get calls all the time. Please fill this position again. Okay, how many times have you filled it? 6 times. Okay, we need to look at why did we have to fill it and refill it 6 times before we take on that recruitment. You may have to adjust workflow policies, schedules, comp and benefits, how management doles out the work. These are things that we're finding when we see that there's an issue with retention in an office. Solution for turnover must be related to the cause of the turnover. So you have to stop and look at that. You want to find someone now to fit the tight job specification. That's kind of old school thinking. You want to instead find somebody who will fit your culture, share your values, and they can be trained. That's your better bet all the time. Unfortunately, most supervisors want the opposite. They just want the skill and the experience, and they discount whether they're going to fit in our culture, have the right personality, or share the values. And you know, from Kate and I, we've been doing this for a long time. From our experience, if they don't fit your culture, they don't have the right personality, they don't share your values, they're going to fail at some point. They can have all the experience and skill in the world, but they're going to fail at some point. So you need to think about that. And then Kate is going to bring us home here to hiring. Again, the onboarding will cover at another date. So I'll leave it in your capable hands, Kate.
Thank you. I interview multiple candidates a day, and they all want competitive wages. They know what the market wage is. When you go to place an ad, it may not be the same as when you placed it a year ago. You really should be looking at what the market wage is by doing an analysis, you know, going out on Indeed, because you don't want to put an ad out and be at the bottom of the bucket, you know, with benefits. With rates. You want to look at everything with the overall picture. When I ask candidates what they want growth. You know, a lot of times when they left their last position, there was lack of growth. So if you can, you know, maybe hire a dental assistant, you know, with the intent of maybe making them the lead assistant, you know, and changing their job description and giving them, you know, a raise, and because everyone's looking for, you know, to be promoted. The same thing with, you know, the front desk. Can you, you know, no one wants to be known as the dental receptionist is like the worst title ever. You know, can you make them the financial coordinator? Can you make them the social media, you know, director? Just, you know, promotion within. Lead hygienist, changing up job responsibilities, up-to-date technology and equipment. No one wants to work in an office with paper charts. They want, you know, CBT scanners, they want CEREC crowns, they want the latest and greatest technology. They want to be part of the team mission. Do you have team meetings, and are you talking about, you know, what the mission is, as everyone together, as a collaborative, you know, group event, and have it posted somewhere, and you know, the why, and everyone being on the same page. Flexibility in hybrid schedules. Hybrid work is the first job search in the US. I know you can't be a dentist and do hybrid dentistry, But maybe for the front desk or the insurance coordinator, or just maybe on a sick day offering, you know, a little bit of a hybrid schedule. Second job search is 4-day work week. You know, if you're not doing a 4-day work week, you might want to think about that. Maybe even switching up and just doing summer hours for a 4-day work week to prevent burnout with the staff.
Sorry.
Candidate experience. No, go back. Sorry. Keep going. Yep. The candidates want a wow factor, and it starts with the hiring manager. So the pressure's on. They want a quick response from the initial, just, you know, applying for the job. Getting them, you know, in the door for the interview, being flexible with the schedule for the interview. You know, it's not ideal to be at the office at 6 o'clock after you're supposed to go home to interview, but if the candidate's working somewhere else, you're going to have to pull them in at 5:30 or 6 o'clock to interview. You know, giving them a tour of the office, letting them meet the team, and maybe even giving them something, you know, putting, you know, a step up from the office down the street, you know, giving them a coffee cup and maybe a lip balm with the office logo, giving them your contact information and letting them know if you have additional questions that they could call you after the interview. Old school was 24 hours. You know, the need for speed, really. You know, I had a dentist that I spoke with last night, and I asked him, are you casually looking for a job, or are you looking to secure, you know, with a contract? And he told me, I started looking for a job 3 days ago, and you're the first person I talked to. At that point, I scheduled him, he's out of state. I scheduled him a Zoom interview with the office, and then I asked him when he was coming to Massachusetts, and I had already scheduled him for an in-person interview as well. So just putting everything, you know, scheduling everything and being quick to schedule. You know, I have Indeed ads out for a lot of my clients. I'm responding on the weekend. I'm responding at night. I have on my watch, you know, if I'm laying in bed and it's 10 o'clock and I get a dental hygienist come through, it's winter, I'm cold, but I'm getting out of bed to go down the hall to respond. So, you know, so it's not sitting until the morning. I'm not calling the dental hygienist at 10, but I'm at least going on Indeed and sending that initial thank you for responding. When are you available by telephone? So I can, you know, get things rolling a little bit with that. Because the quicker you are to respond, you know, you're not at the back of the totem pole, because if they're applying, you know, one place, they're applying, you know, probably to 10 more. Do you have somebody for a social media strategy for the office? Is somebody in charge of watching what's being posted and replying to that? You know, what are the current or the past employees saying about you? Have you looked at what Glassdoor has? Even Indeed has star reviews on your company. Candidates believe what's posted, so you really need to be following that, because it matters. When you go to put an ad up and you got 2 stars, everyone's looking at the 2 stars. They don't care that you know what your pay and benefits are. They're concentrating on those 2 stars near your ad. Hiring managers are key from the start. 90% of new employees say that the impression they get is 90% they'll be working will influence them taking the job. Yet almost 50% of HR directors say the hiring managers weren't effective at a good candidate experience, explaining internal growth or benefits, or even representing the employee brand. Oh, I love this one. Top interview issues. The manager didn't read the resume or didn't even have the resume. Managers not ready, not running on time, so the candidate's sitting there waiting. Multiple interruptions, looking at text messages coming in, not appearing interested in candidates' concerns, or having a one-sided interview, meaning having the manager asking, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And really not having any concern about, what the candidate can do for, what the company can do for the candidate. So it has to work for both parties and not be a one-sided interview. Number one complaint, disappearing, no response from the interview. You always need to get back to the candidate. Even if they didn't get the job, you don't have to state why, you just have to simply tell them, you didn't get the job, thank you for applying. Something is better than nothing. And if you do that, you almost save yourself, and you can, if you need to backpedal, you can almost, backpedal because you've told them, you didn't get the job, but you could go back at them rather than if you didn't respond. Training, hiring managers. It's a candidates market. There are way more jobs than candidates. The ratio is really almost 2 to 1. According to Indeed, on the job insights, on all dental jobs, there's almost two jobs for every candidate. So the hiring manager really needs to make a connection with the candidate. It's almost a sales technique to hire. Hire for attitude, train for skill, personality. Don't be stuck on the years of experience, be open. I love this part, when I go to look at an ad, when a client comes to me and it says, must have 5 years experience. I could find Sally with 5 years experience and she might, not have a great personality. And then I might find somebody else with, a great personality with 2 years experience. You really can't be stuck on that 5 years, because the 2 years, with a better personality might be a better fit for the office. In-person interviews, Zoom. Zoom is great. Don't use it regularly for interviews. Use it for people out of state. Use it when someone's scheduled and has COVID. Use it more of a holding spot, to meet and greet and kind of plan for the in-person interview. Working interview, I wouldn't recommend doing regularly. They're too timely. They must be paid. And really, you should meet with the person first. And by the time you do that and then do the working interview, you're just missing out. The 90 days probationary period really should be more of an opportunity rather than the working interview. I wouldn't recommend them. No shows for interviews. Everybody has them. I get surprised all the time by them. I would just schedule as short as a time window as possible. Confirm them, your interviews, if you're going days out. My favorite, and it only happens every once in a while, is when a candidate calls me to confirm their own interview before I have the chance to confirm with them. Sometimes that happens. At the end of the interview, I would always thank the candidate, give them your contact information, let them know where you are in the interviewing process, to follow up with them. If you're looking to hire them, I would do a verbal offer followed by a offer letter. I hope everyone is using an offer letter these days. An offer letter is not a contract, but should just have the start date, the pay, the hours, the benefits, vacation time. You know, usually a deadline to respond 48 hours with the offer letter. It's usually, offer letter is usually signed, you know, sent by email and sent back. How many people are looking to improve their candidate experience in 2023 by a show of hands?
I am.
Hi.
Dad, are you okay?
We need a lot of work.
What are you looking to do?
Well, I think that we need to have a better experience. We have not in the past responded the way that you suggest, and I think that is an excellent point. You know, we
Just telling people.
Yeah, and just the idea that you don't know what's going on, you know, for them, it's awful. So
Yeah.
I think that's excellent. So many of these points are excellent.
And I would like to improve the interview experience. When we bring them in, we're going to give them a soft drink and we're going to give them a tour, and we're going to have the last hire also participate in the interview. And yes, they're going to leave with swag. We have a company t-shirt, practice t-shirt, because if they're interviewing with 5 different practices, I want to be the one to stand out. I want to be the only one that they leave with something in hand, that they were actually offered and given a Coke while they sat and waited for us. So I want to be the standout for the interview process for 2023.
Perfect. Bottom line, hiring is hard work. It's time consuming. It's exhausting. Failing to adapt to the new approach. You know, you're going to be short-staffed. You're going to be less productive. You're going to be able to see less patients. You're going to burn out your current staff. You're going to use stint. You're going to spend a lot of money using stint. And you're still going to be, you know, in the same predicament when you're using stint. It's just a holding spot. I've been working with one unnamed client who didn't want to move up the hourly pay for a hygienist and was using stint. So, and I had an ad out and we weren't going anywhere. And I said, you got to move your pay up. And he said, well, you know, I have to move my pay up with my regular staff because I can't, you know, have a higher rate advertised than what I'm paying. I said, okay. And then I finally went at him with a little grid of, you know, $2 to $3 an hour really of moving everyone up is costing you less than what you're using full-time stint for right now. And he finally agreed to bump everybody up and to bump his hourly rate up, and we finally hired somebody. But, you know, this is a clear example of, you know, failing the new approach. You know, it cost him more money in the end when, you know, he could have just started there. So hiring just isn't hiring. There are 4 different components. That was just 3. Onboarding will be a whole nother presentation. That's everyone's favorite that we'll be doing soon. And questions?
What questions do you wish people would ask you?
Oh, like, I thought I would get a lot about, like, I always get a lot of questions about no-show interviews. because a lot of people have a lot of trouble with no-show interviews. And I just feel like, certain geographical areas are definitely tougher with no-show interviews. And it's just, you can never call it. I'm surprised all the time with no-show interviews. Sometimes it's people I talked to the day before. Sometimes it just, you really can't tell. I'm not calling and chasing people. It's, I keep a log, and I won't call them again, so there's that, but it's just the way of the world. I had one woman call me, a newer client I had just started working with, and she says, this one didn't show up for an interview. I said, okay. She's like, well, what is your protocol? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like almost like she wanted me to call her. And I was like, no, she's going to go down on the log, and that's it. I'm not chasing people, or begging them to go to the office for the interview, because I've tried, or had people call me later on with oh, my cell phone, fell in the tub. And it's like, but you still had Indeed, and you still saw my message, and I just won't go there anymore, because I've been burnt. You're an adult here. If your cell phone fell in the tub, then it's still.
My dog. That's my dog ate my homework story.
That's right. Yeah. And then you have to worry about chasing them the rest of their employment life.
Just another situation that we have is, when they get hired, they got to give 2 weeks notice, and then they don't show up for the day of. And then it's like, okay, so you took the ad down, it took, a month to hire, and then it's 2 weeks notice, and then it's 6 weeks later, and you're like,
Yeah, usually they use your proposition to get more money or get things changed at the old business, that their old practice or whatever. We see that too. Yeah, I think that these are all universal problems.
yeah.
Because I talk with 2 other business owners every week, and we talk about hiring all the time, and we always have these horror stories.
Or they go give their employer notice. This is another one of my favorites. And it's now a bidding war.
Well, exactly, right. Yeah.
They give their notice, and then they decide, I'm not leaving, or they come back at me and they're like, well, my employer offered me this, so I want this now. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes more comfortable to stay where you were than it is to go to a new place, unless that new place looks dazzling. And you get so all these points are great that you're giving, that you really need to make the impression that you're not like the business that they're leaving.
yeah.
Great.
Another thing I come across, and I just scratch my head at it a lot, is, when I tell them what the going rate is, and they don't want me to post it, because that's not what they're paying their current staff. And then I say, so you're going to pay a new girl, a certain amount, but then you're not paying your current staff. So you're potentially going to call me again, because we're going to hire somebody at, a certain rate. And then when they're all mixed together, working together, and, your current staff finds out that the new girl's making a lot more money, they're going to find another job down the street, and you're going to be calling me to recruit for you again.
There's a lot of resentment, so there's a lot of in-staff problems because of that too. This is what I lived through when I was first hired at my dental practice.
Yeah, and we're not talking a lot of money. We're talking like $2 to $3 an hour. Are you really going to be you're going to make chaos over $2 to $3 an hour, rather than kind of make peace and know that everyone's paid the same, and you're not going to have people, especially with the way the job market is. There's that too, and I've come across it all the time.
Those are really good points. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Pam. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
We're so glad to have you in. we'll send out a survey to everybody to find out what they liked and what they would want changed for our timing is what I'm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.